Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but because Hololive is such a big set, we wanted to do a second deck tech on the new release. So we're going to do 8 salvage Hololive today, the Ayame level 1 into the Marine level 3. This is not the best deck in Hololive, I don't think, but I think it's a viable one, and I haven't seen a whole lot of people doing the 8 salvage stuff. There's a lot you can do with the Marine top end, and we'll get into that. The object of this deck, that level 3 Marine combo, it's very cheap, gets on board easy, and can close with burn damage. The rest of the deck is constructed to get us cards into hand so we can use it as well as our tap counter. As far as whether or not it's competitive, it's fine. If you're playing Hololive competitively, you're not playing this, you're playing Rushia. Probably. The Marine is decent, it's pretty solid, but I don't think it's as good as the Rushia. There are also a lot of other ways you can play the Marine that other channels have talked about. Tressus Collectibles did a really good video where they talked about a few different ways you can play Marine. Link in the description to that. But the point of this isn't necessarily to be the best version of Hololive, it's just to give a different look, because I think that level 1 combo is pretty solid. But it's certainly good enough for locals. It would probably do fine in a competitive environment, but I would be surprised to see a top with this deck. The good news is it's not an expensive deck. The Hololive playset is going for a little over $200 on the secondary market right now, so the cards are not hard to get, so it's not a difficult deck to build for the budget conscious. The deck wins, like I said, with the Marine combo at the top. It burns basically for free because of its on-play plussing. It's a really solid self-contained combo. You can just get 3 of these down. It digs for its own climax. Very efficient for its cost. The Ayame level 1 adds a lot of cards to our hand. We run 8 salvage triggers. A lot of ways to add cards to hand, so we have the selectivity and we have the pieces we need to make everything work. And let's start with our zeros. It's basically all size and hand fixing at 0. We'll start with the Riki, Yamada, Hermione, Minato, Aqua. Gets 3,000 power if it sits in the center position, so sits at 3-5. It's a non-death Riki, which isn't fantastic, but when it dies, we pay 1, put a card from our waiting room into our clock of our choice, and then we get to top check 2 and add any characters to hand. So potentially a +2 on a Riki profile. That also lets us fix our level. It leans into the thing that the deck does best, and that is getting cards into our hand. Next, thanks for waiting, Sakura Miko. It's the 3-5 drop searcher that we've talked about before. It's just a big body on a drop searcher. Great fixing, creates big board states alongside that Riki on turn 1 and 2. The other big body we want to talk about is Autumn Path Kiryu Koko. It's a 3,000 power clean cut. It can't side attack, which is a bummer, but it's big enough to usually get the reverse it needs to kick something into our back row. We also don't have a ton of yellow in this list, despite running a handful of tech pieces at the top, so this will help us fix for yellow down the stretch. The big target for the clean cut is the Brainstorm. The Yuzuki 5-card draw Brainstorm gives 1,000 power to every one of our level 1 combo pieces, which helps push that to a really nice power threshold. 5-card Brainstormers are better than 4-card Brainstormers, even if they're on draws, just because they are far more likely to hit. It mills really fast, which plays nicely into the deck speed that we have in the first half of the game, and it can potentially add us our climaxes or events with the draw. We also run a couple copies of Returning the Favor Murasaki Shion. We can pay 1 at the beginning of our opponent's attack phase to stand and swap 2 of their characters. It's basically like Yoshino, except the exact opposite. We swap 2 of our opponent's characters. Basically, it lets us move their bombs around or their big bodies to places that are less useful. So if they're trying to reverse one of our key pieces, we can basically deny that by just swapping this into its place if we leave this in the back row, and we usually have room in the back row to do so. Our last 0 is the Watame Climax Swap. On play, pay 1 Climax Swap, but when this card's damage is cancelled, it can go to stock. Climax Swap is already good. The additional useful ability makes it even better. We run 2 of it because we don't have direct Climax plussing, like a Pants Trigger or something like that. So this will help us when we draw a Climax, even at level 3, to switch into the one that we need the most. Level 1 is where I think we see the most interesting profiles in this deck. We want to get this combo together because it helps us dig through our deck and plus us into hand, and we have a lot of pieces to help that happen. The combo itself, Ayame's first anniversary, 5-5 on its own, 6-5 with Climax, 7-5 with that Brainstorm we already talked about. So decent-sized body that can usually get reverses at 1 unless we're playing into something that, hit a lot of standby triggers early. The combo is on attack top check 4 at a level 1 or higher card, so this can add events as well as characters. It's on a salvage, which is nice. But the thing I think I like the best about this is that it mills through 15 cards if we tri-field it with triggers. Really helps us with our refresh, make sure that we are refreshing when we want to. With the Brainstorm, we can get through 20 or more cards on our turn, so if we're in a bad deck state, this will immediately help us fix it. The other big fixing tool we have for our deck state is the Momosuzu Nene. It's a 3000 power level 1 bomb, just kills standby targets and anything else that we can't get rid of with our regular level 1 combo. It has an alarm effect, which is the most important reason it's here. When it is in our clock at the beginning of main phase, we can pay 1, pitch 1 to refresh our deck after clock drop. So if we're out a bunch of climaxes early, we can drop this and immediately fix this at any level. 0, 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. Whenever we're in a bad deck state, we can drop this to immediately get a refresh. And it has a ditch outlet built in because it's a pay 1, pitch 1. So if we're flooded with climaxes, we can get rid of a climax, pay 1, maybe even pay out another climax to send all that stuff back into our deck and refresh and be in a better deck state. The Omaru Polka at level 1 on play, pay 1, pitch 1, and we can summon a cost 0 character from waiting room to board, and then at the end of our turn, we'll send that card to memory. So this goes to get additional copies of our level 1 combo if we need it. Make sure that, we can get that hand size, get that mill that we really need. It also summons extra sacrifice outlets for the level 3 combo, which we'll get into how that works in a little bit. But this card has really nice synergy with the rest of what's going on. Why is there a green card in my red deck? Well, that's because you can play this card without meeting the color requirements. Rushio, you can play it without meeting color requirements in level or clock. On play, pitch a character to top check, and you can add it if it's a character. And on attack, you can give each character 500 for each other Hololive character. So this will help us get to power thresholds that we need to against things like standby. The only thing that sucks about this card is that you can completely whiff it after paying the cost. On play, you need to pitch before you can top check, so in a deck that does run a couple events, not optimal, but it's here more for the power pump, helps us get reverses where we need them. Level 2 is mostly tech pieces and a couple of key counters. This is Ayame and Marine, a 2-1-6-5, 2000 power assist to all level 3 or higher characters. When you play this on stage, you can pay 1 and move a character from stage to waiting room to salvage a character. So both this and the level 3 combo sacrifice from board. Basically, we're willing to give up cards from board in order to get cards into hand. Honestly, we're only going to leave this on board to grant power every so often. Oftentimes, this will be essentially a sacrifice outlet for our Marine. I don't necessarily love this. It's here for a couple of edge cases. One, if we need to salvage a Marine from our waiting room because it's not in our deck, or if we need the power to the Marine for some reason on board, if we desperately need to get over for some reason. This is here for that. It gives us the option, but we're not necessarily going to try to get into this card in every game. This card, on the other hand, we're definitely going to try to get into our hand every game. The Hachima Beam Akai Hato. It's a 2500 backup on a pitch 4 tap counter. This is why we're playing into the salvage as much as we are. This is why we're playing that level 1 combo that pluses us every time we attack. It's for this. Everything in this deck tries to get us hand so that we have access to tap counter every single game. We can shut down combo lanes. We can keep entire damage lanes out of play. And in most decks, pitch 4 is a ton. In this deck, not so much because we can actually recur our hand pretty easily. We can play this down on the turn before we combo. The Marine will fill our hand back up so that we can immediately ditch all of it and use our combo. This card is very powerful, and when paired with plussing pieces, it makes it that much easier to use. Hololive 0th generation, it's a 2-1 counter event. It denies reverses and auto damage in a single lane. I like this. It prevents on reverse effects from going off. It prevents burn damage from happening. Keeps combos from going off. This paired with the tap counter, if we can use both of them, basically can guarantee us a second turn. Some decks will load up auto damage in one lane and you can just shut that off completely with this. It's kind of like a mini money counter in a way. Pretty nice way to disrupt combos. And finally, level 3, obviously, the Marine combo is where we're trying to go with this, as well as a handful of tech pieces. The Marine herself, on play, sacrifice a character from board. We can top check 3, add 1 to stock and 1 to hand, and that immediately pays for our combo, which is pay 1, pitch 1, deal 2 damage, and this gains 2000 power. So with combo, this will swing at 13-5 without a back row, which again, we're probably not going to have a back row because we're sacrificing it. This is a guns blazing, go in to try to close out the game kind of combo that's going to try to swing 3-2, 3-2, 3-2 every time. When we play 3 of these and can sacrifice 3 other characters, we can dig 9 for the climax, which is really nice. Also more copies of itself. This is where that level 1 Polka is really nice because when we play the Polka, we can summon another character to board that we can then sacrifice with the Marine, right? If we have a character in our back row at the start of turn, we can play the Polka, summon another 0 to board, and then we have 3 on board that we can sacrifice in quick succession. We can get the whole Marine board down for 4, and then after we refund that final stock with the 3rd copy, we can use that to make the combo happen on our first swing with Marine. So very efficient, very cost effective, gives us a lot of flexibility with what we want to do in the rest of the deck, most notably that 2-1 tap counter. We play a copy of the level 3 Watame. It's an early play when we have 4 more on board. On play, we can reveal the top card of our deck, and if it's a Hololive character, we send an opponent's character to the bottom of their deck. Just kill standby targets. Anything in the center stage can be targeted with this, so just kill things that kill our things. Send them to the bottom of the deck. They can't be encored. They can't be hard encored. They just can't be returned at all. So this gets rid of Gelds. It gets rid of any 2/2 standby target. Gets rid of Soul Walls. Anything of that sort that doesn't have hexproof immediately goes to the bottom of our opponent's deck. We also play a copy of the level 3 Matsuri. On play, pay 1 stock swap. Gains 1,000 power for each character when we use an active ability. So if we use a Brainstorm or something, that's not really all that important. It's a stock swap on a 2 soul. It's here so we can punish opponents for having too much clean stock, basically. The idea is that we give ourselves an opportunity to decompress if we need to. We also run this level 3 Shiranui on turn. If all your characters are Hololive, this sits at 12. It has cancel burn 1, and you can additionally pay 1 and sacrifice a character off board on play to give it an additional cancel burn. This basically exists as an additional way to close out a game if we don't get our 3rd copy of Marine down. It does something very similar for a very similar cost, and it doesn't require the climax combo. And finally, we run a copy of the level 3 Ayame. On play, we can level down an opponent's character twice. Just nuke a standby board, right? Our opponent has 2/2s on board. We just play this. They don't have 2/2s on board anymore. This also gives 1,500 to each character. Anything that isn't trying to do damage at level 3 is kind of a luxury play for us. We're not going to, seek these out necessarily, but if we're in a situation where we have the stock to do it and our opponent's on standby, this is a great play. The early play condition on this doesn't work for us. This is really only going to come down to level 3. It's why it's a one-of. It's a tech piece. It is here in case we need to live an extra turn after our Marine combo. If we need to, hold up tap counter, if we need to hold up the 2-1 counter event, this allows us to win a couple of lanes so that we can do that, stay alive for another turn, and hopefully recur our combo to actually close out the game. The top end is really cheap, and it burns really aggressively. It doesn't take a lot for us to get the pieces together to make the top end work. Gets a lot of cards into hand, makes it easy to use the backup and the counter. It's also got a lot of speed because, we're going through 15 cards when we combo. We have a 5-card Brainstormer. Very easy to refresh our deck with the level 1 alarm piece. So we're able to get out of bad situations pretty easily. Unfortunately, it's very small on board, and stuff tends to not stay alive for extra turns. The top end is basically just burn, and if the burn doesn't work, or if we aren't able to use it, then we're kind of in a lurch. We also struggle to win board at 2 in particular because we don't have much removal. We only have a couple of bodies that we can bring down at level 2, and that's only if we meet some early play conditions that we don't necessarily play well into, so trying to remove a standby heavy board at level 2 is going to be a problem for us. We can take care of it at 3, but 2 is going to be a challenge. The mid-game board looks like this. We want the Brainstormer in the back to give us that extra 1,000 power to all of our lanes in the front. The Polka isn't so much something we want to have down as much as it's a way that we can make sure we get 3 lanes of combo. It's very easy to get this together with the Ramorous profile, so if we mill a level 1 into our waiting room, we don't have to worry about it too much. Our optimal level 3 board just looks like Marine swinging 3 times. That's the goal here. We basically just want to nuke everything that was on our board and just let Marine close by herself with a full hand to pay out her costs. Like I said, it's a very aggressive top end that's just gung-ho trying to win the game right now. This is Hololive, so there are a million ways you can play this deck. Some of the cards that I like are the level 0 Hato. On attack, you can give another character 1,000 power, and when this becomes reversed, you can look it up to 3 and add a climax. A way to get climax in hand is always interesting, especially in like an 8 salvage build where you're not going to trigger it into your hand. Ultimately, not really room for it. It doesn't really add enough, but there are some ways to add climaxes into hand with this. The 2-1 Sakura Miko sits at 3,500 on your opponent's turn and 13,500 on your turn. It's a way to remove standby targets, forces backups out of hand. Again, Level 2 is kind of wonky in this deck, so if you want to play into having better removal options at 2, here you go. This is probably the card for you. Like I said, sits at 13-5. It's a big body that can take care of standby targets and early plays across board. Probably the most popular combo with this top end is the Birthday Party Carne combo, which gives something on your board on reverse search. It gets up to 8-5 with all of its pieces on board, which is fine. I don't love on reverse combos. This isn't a bad profile by any stretch, but on reverse combos do make me nervous because you're going to run into some standby stuff you're just not going to be able to reverse. And if you don't get your reverses, you don't get your hand, and if you don't get your hand, you basically just don't get to play the rest of the game. So there are games where this combo is going to lose hard, and that's enough reason for me to want to be on the Ayame instead. Hololive also has 4 good colors, so if you wanted to lean into blue instead of yellow, there are definitely cards to play that will reward that choice. This 3-2 is an early play stock healer. It comes down 4 more, so it's an easy condition to meet. Playing more blue will also allow you to play like the Azasa, allow you to drop the Ayame as an early play. A lot of 3-color synergy in Hololive, so if you want to lean into that, there are definitely ways that you can make that work effectively. So here's the list. Tops out at about $75, which isn't too bad. Prices on these will likely change, pretty rapidly as time goes on, just because Hololive's a new set. But the most expensive thing here is the Marine. It's $8 a pop. I can see that going up, so if you want to play this, might want to get your hands on it now. Hololive's release is an interesting one, considering it's a lot of trial deck cards. So rarity and scarcity might be a little bit wonky the further away we get from release date. So if you want to play this, I would just recommend that you get your hands on it quickly and don't try to price watch too much. Drop Searcher's $5, Clean Cut's $4. This is not expensive by any stretch. The level 1 combo is a trial deck combo that costs 14 cents. So budget Hololive is certainly an option. Even if you wanted to move off the Marine top end, like if you wanted to just play pure budget Hololive, you could definitely do that for very, very cheap. So like I said, a whole play set will run you probably a little over 200 right now. Again, the market is, in flux, so I would jump in now because I don't know if this is going to go up or down. But in any case, as things stand, this is a pretty affordable deck even for a casual Weiss player. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. We will be back with gameplay for this on Thursday, a clock talk on Tuesday, and 5 cards, 5 minutes a week from Thursday. In 2 weeks, Brandon will have Weiss 101. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and have a good one.